everyone, and welcome to the NA LCS Countdown, where for 30 minutes we review how the teams stack up and place our bets on who will succeed until the timer reaches 0 and we jump into Champions Select. Let's kick things off by taking a look at the standings. Clutch Gaming and Team Liquid are only one win away from second at 7-4, while TSM holds 6th at 5-6, with Optic Gaming and FlyQuest trailing behind them in 7th.
Man, still crazy to see how Clutch Gaming has moved so far up the standings after starting the season 2-4.
Of course, both Echo Fox and Cloud9 suffering some losses recently makes that top 6 very interesting as well as the total push for the playoff picture. We'll see who can gain ground with our matches today. In Game 1, we've got Optic Gaming, who could tie TSM if they pick up the win, with FlyQuest versus 100 Thieves shortly after. And Clutch Gaming aim to give Cloud9 their first 0-2 week here in Game 5. Looking at that third game, though, Echo Fox must take down Team Liquid if they want to maintain sole possession of first place.
Yeah, and their loss yesterday can pretty much be pinpointed on a very questionable draft. They had, you know, the kind of everyone counter pick. It ends up with a crazy 1-3-1 that has no chance of team fighting versus Camille Galio. Pick some bad fights, and as soon as you fall behind versus that comp with what they had, it's hard to win.
Yeah, and I think Phoenix has played great for most of the year. He had by far his worst game yesterday on the Fiora, not only unable to team fight, but just making some really silly 1v2 decisions. Huni tried to carry the game himself, and
close.
Actually nearly did, except Baron did not go their way down the stretch.
On the flip side, Team Liquid, I mean, they had a solid game against FlyQuest yesterday, coming out with a win.
Yeah, I mean, they played Fly. It was another sub 30-minute game, even though it was really close until like 26 minutes. And then once they got that lead, they were able to snowball it very quickly, and it looked a little bit like the Team Liquid we saw in earlier weeks, even though they had kind of a bit of a losing stretch before then.
Yep. All right, Mark, we mentioned the draft earlier for Echo Fox, so I'm going to have you guys put your money where your mouth is today with another dueling draft. And just to kind of give some...
I knew they were going to... I felt that last
night.
Give
some context. This is a little bit of the trash talking that was going on between the two of them last night. As the producers and I positioned them as we would for this dueling draft. So Mark was elected to represent Echo Fox in the draft. Jat, Team Liquid, with a little bit of the banter out in front of the draft. We're gonna jump right into it.
Yeah. Zillion, dead. I'll tell you that right now.
Really?
Fiora mid, dead.
Okay.
I'm not doing those.
So we pre-populated these bans.
Yes.
We did this about an hour ago, and I just have to say, since Mark, I'm not going to put you on the clock for pick 1 yet.
Okay.
Playing as Echo Fox, especially as a red side team on this patch, is awful. Like, I found it so hard to get a favorable position. Even just talking about my bans, I don't think you can give them the option to first pick Gangplank, because Huni, I don't think, has many losing matchups with that. He'll win against everyone. If you ban neither Azir or Zoe, Zoe counters Azir. If you ban Zoe, it's Phoenix's Azir. So, like, all of those things just ruin your choice as red side, so I had to ban those 3.
And the one interesting thing is, so far, Echo Fox has not played Skarner. They've actually banned it a fair amount. And if you look at that last ban that I had to do there, it's Zoe and Skarner both up. And what I would personally like to do is leave both up, ban another thing out, and then take whichever one they don't ban. But just based off Echo Fox's trends and what they do, I felt like I had to ban the Skarner there, which results now in my first pick being Sejuani.
Sejuani. All right. A pretty standard jungle pickup here from Mark. Jat, what's
surprising.
The response?
Yeah, so he has picked jungle. I have said time and time again that Team Liquid often wants to kind of play around that winning bottom lane. But I'm not necessarily going that direction yet because of all the mid lane bans. I want to get kind of a power pick out of the way. I'm going to pick Talia for Pobelta right now because I don't think Phoenix is going to be able to match roams, and that's one of the ways to take him down. And then I'm also going to be taking Varus for double lift.
Ooh. Okay, so the ADC pick does come through, one half of the bot lane alongside the mid laner, Mark.
So this is interesting. Varus was something I was thinking about banning potentially, especially in the first rotation, even in the second if it got there. Yeah, it's a good pick. Didn't end up happening though.
I mean, is that because you're scared of a strong 2v2 in the bot lane? Like, why would the ban for Varus come through specifically? Or were you considering?
Well, one of the things about Echo Fox's bot lane is they generally want to have a pretty self-sufficient bot lane, and Varus can force a lot of action with his ultimate. So you see things like Kalista, Ezreal, and what I'm probably going to take here, Tristana, as pretty self-sufficient things. And in particular, Varus has good matchups into the Kalista and the Ezreal, which are the two things I want the most. So I will take the Tristana instead here. And then I will round out my first phase of the draft with the Vladimir.
Vladimir pick. So this is still a potential flex, right? As we saw, Huni was the one who ended up on it yesterday. That could throw a little wrench over into Jat's response here if he's not sure where it's going.
Right. It is definitely a flex pick for Echo Fox, and they've done this a lot. Luckily, I kind of went through a lot of things, and I'm going to take Scion because I don't think Vladimir necessarily beats Scion. I don't think there's really anything that hard smashes Scion.
Right.
And I don't want Impact to get smashed by Huni. I want to neutralize that as much as possible.
Neutralizing the top lane so the Scion comes through. That's our first phase, moving right along to the ban phase. Jat, you get to kick us off here.
All right, so this is a little bit tricky, obviously, because he's already taken, he has the flex pick, so it's hard to target ban. We're matching 80 carries, and I don't want to ban out jungle, obviously. So I'm just going to throw a few support bans since I'm going to have first pick on that anyway. And I'm going to ban Shen. It's actually one of the most banned champions against Echo Fox, mainly because if Huni picks a carry, I don't want the support to be able to help him out.
That makes sense.
On my end, they already taken 3 of their laners, and we have the shared support pools, and the one mismatch thing is the jungle. I did not want to ban junglers in this draft in particular. It's other than that Skarner pick.
Yeah.
But since I am in this position, it is going to be one of my bans going to have to take away the Jax.
Okay, so Jax comes off the table for Team Liquid. You're saying this was not your intended approach. You didn't expect to be in a situation where you'd be banning junglers.
I thought there was a chance this would happen, but I didn't think he'd take the Scion right there.
Gotcha.
So I wanted to potentially ban out some of the safer top laners.
You wanted to abuse that top lane. That looked to protect
I'm just going to keep banning most played supports for Adrian. I'm going to ban Braum.
Braum goes off the table. We have one ban left. Mark?
So after that, obviously Zach, if I'm going to stick with my jungler plan.
Ooh, get
Zach,
more junglers out of there.
Ban.
All right, let's fill out this final pick phase. Jat, first selection. You had mentioned that you'll get the first stab at the support pool.
It's Taric.
Taric.
Yeah, Taric Varus is an insane combo.
All right, yeah, no surprises there. Lots of power picks. Mark, two champs.
Right, so I'm going to take Tom Kench first. For my bot lane, just if they try and force stuff around us.
Right.
Good pick for trying to keep people alive. Also a relatively safe lane, I'd like to think. So we'll go with that.
All right, that leaves you with either mid or top, right?
And this is one of those situations where, like, Huni probably knows some crazy counter pick. I don't. So, like, from this position, I'd love to take some insane top laner here.
This is where, as a coach, you'd be saying, Huni, like, what's the pick?
Yeah,
right?
I'd be like, Huni, tell me what you got. Because I'm not Huni and I don't know what crazy shenanigans he has, I'm just going to take Gnar. Generally a very powerful pick in the current meta. Does well into Scion, though Scion can't survive it.
Okay.
And we'll touch on the top lane in a second about this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, so that implies that the Vlad is obviously going to the mid lane. Jat, you get your final response here.
Yeah, there's not too many junglers left if I'm thinking about Xmithy. It's not super high in meta right now, but with all the jungle bans, Gragas is left.
Okay.
So I'm going to be taking Gragas.
All righty.
Can also
no
disengage
J4?
the Gnar, not J4
All right.
now. It's pretty nerfed. You could definitely do it, but J4 Scion kind of has anti-synergy.
Right, and he hasn't really shown the Camille as a jungle pick. For
No,
Xmithy,
he
so.
definitely hasn't. And there's not many things to combo with. This turned out a lot weirder than I thought it would.
All right, so cool. Let's unpack this because now that we've gotten to the end of the draft, I actually kind of want to rewind. First, I want to understand what your guys' goals were coming into the draft. Then, how you feel about the comps that you actually drafted, and we'll get to how these comps should be played within the game. Mark, let's start with you. What was your goal here for Echo Fox?
So for Echo Fox, one of the things they always do is take a 80 carry early on in the draft, usually one of the higher priority ones that will guarantee them a even or winning matchup. So you see a lot of Kalista play from them. So make sure you get a stable bot lane in some capacity. Not being able to ban out the Varus with how the first bans went, him taking it early on meant I had to change off the Kalista into this.
Yeah.
Still felt like it worked out. And then the other thing that I'm sure Jat and I want to talk about is just how damn good Huni is and how hard it makes drafting against him. So Huni over Impact basically means I can take skill matchups that might even be slightly disadvantaged and feel confident that he will win those matchups. So something like Camille Gnar would be a matchup I'd be happy to opt into either side.
Fair enough.
And that's why I didn't blind pick Gnar. So I actually think about the way Team Liquid wins, and they haven't won that much by getting super high synergy team comps, aside from the one time they got Camille Galio. So my draft goal was actually to just pick winning lanes, like get 2 out of 3 winning lanes. When I saw all the mid lane bans that came through, I thought Talia is actually a premier pick, and Phoenix isn't going to have anything that can beat it. So I secured that. Varus is the strongest laning 80 carry. I wanted to secure that right away.
Okay.
At that point, it was just a matter of salvaging the rest of the draft, so it made sense. That's why I locked in the Scion, because he doesn't lose that badly, and everything else just filled out.
So you feel like you hit your goals with the draft that you ended up with?
I think I hit my goals, but I also want to point out that I hated being in this position. I hated that I had no flexibility in bans. I hated that I didn't feel like I had much I could do against Huni. And I hated that I had to ban so many mid laners. So, like, I still think that Echo Fox kind of won the draft because the way the players and the champion pools match up here, I just feel like Echo Fox plays with so many advantages.
The only thing I'd say is I wish I got a little bit more volatile of a top lane matchup, but with the Sion taking that early, it was hard to get it.
Overall happy though? Like,
I'm really happy with what I got, considering how I thought I would do.
I'm actually super happy with it, because other than Talia pushing in Vladimir right away, it actually becomes a pretty difficult matchup with Protobell and some of the, like, I assume he's going to take Ignite in that matchup and go for kill pressure on Talia.
Two happy coaches, that's what I like to hear. We'll be bringing you Champ Select for Echo Fox versus Team Liquid to see how closely the team's drafts follow our own. Probably not at all. We'll be stepping away for a quick break. When we return, Jat and Mark share their mid lane tier list, and we get pros to help us out with some more obscure stats. All that and more after the break.
I have to say Jensen is probably the best.
You're going to argue Febvin?
I'd say Jensen.
I agree with Jensen. What most people expect me to say would be biased towards Bjergsen, but right now I feel it is Jensen.
I think in terms of lane, Phoenix.
High is at the bottom of the list. I understand he is not doing the best. He is not the best mid laner. However, he is also the shot caller for his team. He has 2 jobs. In this economy, you have to work 2 jobs to become amazing.
You know what? Actually really surprised by that. We don't see TSM or CLG Jat today, apparently. It's Cloud9 Jat.
Maybe Rio on for Jat. I put him lower.
I love TSM Jet, but I'm going to go with Marks on this one.
Both guys gave it to Jensen, so who put Bjergsen lower? So I'll give it to Jat today because he put Bjergsen lower.
I'm gonna go with Mark.
Jet.
Jet.
Jet. Jet.
Sorry, Mark. Oh, man. See, we piled on there at the
Apparently
end.
got them on my side.
At the very end, that one group of people
Yeah,
just
all
is in love
four
with
of
all
you.
in
Did
favor
you
of
sign them?
Jet.
Did you sign their stuff yet? Is that why?
Not yet.
Welcome back to the NALCS Countdown. We've made it back out to the arena to do another tier list, this time centered around the mid lane. You got some of the opinions from the fans and how they reacted to the tier list as they've already been released here in the studio. We're about to throw them up and get into it here as well.
And I want to give a big disclaimer. This is for the first 11 games of the split. It's not historical. It's not who's going to be better today. Bjergsen is probably the best player in the history of the North American LCS. It does not mean he has been the best player in the first 11 games of this split.
I don't accept that. That's impossible.
Well, you're going to have to get used to it.
Of course. All right, so with that out of the way, through the first 11 games of the split, power rankings, mid lane tier list up on the board. First thing to notice is that both of you actually have the same first 3 players in order, Jensen, Feb, and Phoenix. Let's start with Jensen, the guy who tops the tables, because just last week, you guys were actually split on best mid laner in the league.
What happened, Jat? Last week you had a Phoenix #1 on your All-Pro team.
Jat, what happened?
We'll get to Phoenix in a bit. He had a bit of a fall off since then, but Jensen has been just the consummate mid laner in this split. He has been winning lane every time. He has been playing around his team very well. He has been extremely flexible in the champions he can pick and succeed on. So he's just been as good as he's always been.
Yeah, absolutely an amazing lane player. Not getting as many resources this time. Last split, you knew him as like contracts ganking for him. Now he's roaming pretty well all over the map, as well as, like Jat said, playing different style picks. We saw the Zillion with TP in week 1.
All right, let's talk about the guy then that kind of took a step down in that sense. Phoenix, he's now dropped to 3rd on the list.
Right, and I think Phoenix's Fiora game exposed a lot of the weaknesses that have been covered up for the rest of the split, because I think Phoenix has been the best lane player by a number of metrics.
Right.
Forward percentage, CSD, it was kills before yesterday as well. He's been smashing in so many statistical categories, but you wonder about the depth of his pool, especially when he pulls out something like Fiora, and his ability to be a team player. Because so much of mid lane this year isn't necessarily about all of those metrics. It's about how do you ward, how do you roam, how do you team fight, not how do you 1v1 someone in lane.
And that's the thing. Bjergsen got a ton of crap from the community about his pink warding. Phoenix is almost no better at all. It's very similar statistics in warding, including pink wards. His kill participation is very low. He only picks lane-focused champions. He doesn't roam around the map very well. So while he is the most lane-dominant player in mid lane right now, he also has a lot of shortcomings.
All right, Phoenix dropping to 3rd means Febivin slots in at 2nd. Let's talk about the import.
I mean, this is a weird one to talk about because when you look at the stats, suddenly there's just no area that he's behind on. He's very highly rated in a number of stats, and then on top of the fact, when you do the eyeball test, he's always playing extremely well. Yes, he died a couple times last game, late game, but other than that, he actually has the lowest deaths of all mid laners, so he's able to get a lot of work done on the map from a very safe position.
And when I think about the way Clutch Gaming has won a lot of their games, it's getting to those late game team fights and having Febivin straight up outplay the other team in those very important moments. That's given them a lot of their wins, so that kind of catapults him up to that #2 spot.
All right, well, we've talked about 3 picks that you guys are in agreement about. Now let's talk about some differentiation. The 2 players that are about to face off on stage here, Power of Evil and Bjergsen.
Jat, you hate Bjergsen? I thought you were TSM Jat.
What happened? Well, right now, Mark, I gotta say, this also, what's weird about this, and there's some nuance here, I actually think Bjergsen will probably play better than Power of Evil in this next game based on what he did yesterday. But if I look at the 11 games this split, I can't put Bjergsen above Power of Evil. As you mentioned, Mark, some of the worst warding stats in the league, not even that lane dominant, hasn't helped out many other lanes, hasn't actually had huge late game team fights, so he's been below his bar in so many categories that I can't put him above a guy like Power of Evil, who's got the most kills and I think is one of the main reasons they're at 4 wins for Optic.
You talk about lane dominance. Power of Evil isn't even on that side of the coin for a lot of the stats.
Not that important.
It's not that important, I agree, but Bjergsen and Phoenix are, to me, the same side of the coin, or different sides of the same coin, where they're both very, very lane-focused, but Phoenix is a lot more aggressive, willing to take the risks. He's #1 in solo kills for mid laner, but I think he's #2 in solo deaths, whereas Bjergsen's last in deaths, and I think 6 in solo kills. So what I'm saying is they both play very lane-focused, but Bjergsen is just completely devoid of mistakes and getting punished. So I still rate him pretty highly.
All right, moving right along. We're going to go down to the bottom of the list. Huhi and Hai. I mean, credit where credit's due. Hai has to do 2 jobs, as we heard.
Yeah. And who
if we do a shot caller tier list, I guarantee he's at the top. All right. But for now, he's sitting in 10th. Explain.
Yeah, so I had High in 10th, and I think Huhi somewhere similar in 9th. So High, as far as laning goes, even though it isn't not super important, his CSD at 15 is the second worst of any mid laner in the history of the league so far this split. Wow. Shifter back in 2014 was a little bit lower. So his laning has been a huge loss in map pressure, and that's what it really matters about, is because he hasn't been able to make the proactive roam plays, and then he doesn't have the items for the late game team fights. So it's been a tough split for High.
Yeah, same kind of with Huhi a little bit. I think Jat has them slightly too low, but they're both, they're team-focused players, and when your team is bad, it's really hard to shine. Huhi wants to play Aurelion Sol and roam to the side lanes, and we've seen them trying to execute on that strategy, but without any level of cohesion that we've seen out of CLG before. So they're not effectively snowballing Huhi's side lane focused picks, and then they just look awful as a result.
To put a capper on this conversation, just as 8.4 is just over the horizon.
Right.
Lots of mid lane item changes. Who are the players that you're looking at here that could make some really solid moves based on the changes and perhaps a new meta in that mid lane?
Only one way to go is up for some of the guys at the bottom. Huhi and High have been two guys that are very experimental with champion picks if we have some new stuff coming in from there. And then I still expect the top guys to perform.
Yeah, mostly the same. I expect Phoenix to do well as well because he's willing to take every champion to the very limit when you're playing these kind of things. When people are learning exactly what their champions can do, that could work out well.
All right, let's get these players off the screen. It's time to make fools of ourselves on stage.
My favorite.
Jat, take it away for some Jat stats.
Yeah, all right, so I got 3 stats today. I'm going to ask you the first one, which we also asked some pro players. I'm going to let you hear their answers afterwards.
I love when other people have
but
to
the
fail
first
before me.
question is a mid lane focused question. Mark, I expect you to get this one.
Okay.
Simple question. Which mid laner has the highest jungle proximity percentage, which means their jungler ganks for them the most?
I believe I know this.
Which mid laner? Let's have Dash say it first.
Am I helping you again?
Yeah.
Are you helping me
Their
again?
team.
Have you
Yes,
ever
their
helped
team.
me in this?
Well, sometimes. Not enough, admittedly.
Yes, we can agree on that. Okay, not Bjergsen, not Jensen.
Nope.
Not, Pobelter had really high jungle proximity.
Mark,
Yes.
what is your answer?
Power of Evil.
Is it? Okay, well, I'm going to believe him. He
Well-
was so confident. I'm going to say Power of Evil, too. Let's get the free point.
I'm not sure. Let's hear what
I'll
the
take
pros
the
had to
free
say.
point.
It's him.
Yeah!
I kind of want to think it's like C9 or TSM, but that is a good question. Oh, it's probably Golden Guardians. Is it high?
I'm gonna guess that C9 has the highest jungle proximity.
I think just from watching EchoFox games, I think Phoenix.
Okay, well, I haven't been in LCS much, but for me watching C9, I'll just go with C9.
Jensen or Bjergsen? Bjergsen just calls for mainly wards, but Jensen tries to look for a lot of like aggressive plays mid, so I probably think it's Jensen.
I feel like it's a trick question, so I'm not going to say like Jensen or Bjergsen or any of them. So I'm going to say PoE.
And Mark and
Let's
Dash
go.
got it. It's
Woo!
Power of Evil, highest jungle proximity.
Not
Canadian
so easy, is
has
it?
spent 27% of his 3 to 50 minutes within 1,500 units of Power of Evil in that mid lane.
Only reason I know that is the tier list because I had to do a lot of research. So.
All right, second question, multiple choice, so the crowd can get a little involved if they want to.
Please
It's
do.
a champion question. These 4 champs have led the NA LCS in CSD at 15, more than 10 games played. Which of these champions has the best CSD at 15 in the NLCS? So the choices are going to be A, Vladimir, B, Gnar, C, Azir, or D, Skarner.
Ooh, this is tricky because Skarner.
These are the top
That feels
4.
unfair. A jungle champion in this?
CSD at 15. These are the top 4.
So the reason it's interesting is because he's the fastest clearing jungler in the current meta.
Well, I
so
understand
it makes
that.
sense. Vladimir's usually only picked into matchups he smashes, and
Yeah.
Huni plays a lot of Vladimir. Phoenix plays some Vladimir.
This is like Price is Right. They're shouting
I'm
out.
going with my boy.
You can
I'm
use
going
the
with my
crowd.
boy who had high with the 2 jobs in the shot clock. He says Azir. He's going Azir. I'm going to go with it.
Mark?
I swear to God, if this is wrong, I'm kicking you out.
I'm gonna go A, Vladimir.
B, Gnar. So close.
Get out of here!
Yeah. It's super close. Azir was at 11.4 and is 11.7
Oh, there you go.
for Gnar.
Ah,
All right. So
tragic.
final question. this is a stat about bottom lane. So this is the one you're
I haven't done any
super happy
research
about.
on bottom
Exactly.
lane.
Right,
So
we spent the last 2 days top
there's
of the
a
mid.
ranking. It is damage dealt per gold. So it's damage gold ratio. Like if you have a lot of gold, dealt a lot of damage, you'd be low for this. All of these 80 carries won yesterday. One of them for the season has the worst damage to gold ratio. So the 80 carries that won yesterday, we have A, Cody Sun. I hope we're going to get to this because I don't have it by memory. B, Apollo, C, Sven, D, Arrow, or E, Double Lift.
Why would you throw a 5th on there on a stat that we have never talked about?
Because
I'm
all
gonna
these
be
guys
honest,
won
I only
yesterday.
followed the stat halfway through, so I don't even really know
Damage
what
gold
we're-
ratio.
All right, it's not double lift. His DPM's really low. I already just know that. and I
Cody
assume-
Sun had disgustingly
it's
high
the
DPM.
worst.
It's
So
gold
Oh, you're looking for the worst.
For the worst.
Oh,
worst
it
in
potentially
damage
is though.
dealt per gold.
I thought you were looking for
Yes.
the best.
So you're
Okay.
looking for who's getting resources and not dealing damage is essentially
Correct.
what
Yes.
we're looking at. So you're
So-
going with Arrow?
No, I was saying double lift. I know has low DPM
Okay. A lot
of
and gets
C.
some CS. I might go.
Clutch
E.
has.
Gonna have to lock this in.
I think
go
it's
E.
either
I've already
C or
done
E.
E. I'm E.
I'm gonna go.
Dash.
I'll go C.
It's E, Mark. You got a double lift. Somehow it's because, I won't say it's because double lift takes a lot of resources and doesn't do anything with them. I'll say it's because they end games quickly.
Yes,
And
exactly.
that lowers his damage stats, but because they're killing all the turrets, he gets a lot of gold.
Can we move on to something that
We're
you
moving
guys
on.
suck at?
Yes.
I don't.
Yes,
Great.
answer over.
Prediction.
We're not that bad.
Debatable. Let's get them up on the board. Let's see who you guys picked for today's matchups. We got some really interesting. Oh, actually, before we do that, we decided to play another game today. The inanimate objects haven't been doing so well against you guys, so I decided to bring in an animate object and/or person.
Let's go.
So we reached out to one of our PAs, Joel, one of our stage managers here on the show, to get some predictions. We're gonna roll that clip and throw them up on the board.
I like TSM. I don't really have a good reason for it, but I'm gonna go with it. 100 Thieves. I think the whole team rocks Yeezys. Fox, Huni. COG, Darshan is always really nice to me in the hallways. I can't go against that. I'm gonna go with Clutch. I believe they're gonna live up to their name today.
I mean,
honestly,
those are
with
really similar to my prediction.
With how random the LCS is, that reasoning's fine. That's totally
Well, I was about to
reasoning.
say, that's what I love. His reasoning's
Joel.
very concise. The two of you blather on for ages trying to justify your picks, and you're still wrong almost half the time. So, all right, let's talk about some of this.
+9.
That's almost half the time.
All right.
With a very
Fly Quest
liberal
100 Thieves
definition
game,
of
though.
almost.
Yeah, right.
But TSM, you guys are all in agreement there. Let's talk about
Yeah.
the second game, though. FlyQuest 100 Thieves. Mark, you're going with the FlyQuest upset.
So yesterday I didn't go with my gut, and TSM upset, and this is another one that's like a gut check where I'm like, 100 Thieves riding high off their win yesterday. They talk about having a great week. FlyQuest actually played a pretty close game to TL. If they were a little more decisive in their shot call, and they could have won it. So gut tells me it's going to be a come-down game for 100 Thieves.
100 Thieves smashed C9 yesterday. I can't go against him.
That's fair enough. The last thing I want to talk about real quick is I want to force you guys to justify that clutch win. Since you both picked C9, justify.
5-game winning streak for Clutch. You got to
There it
start
is.
giving them credit eventually. This game will basically, if they win this one, they're getting the credit.
I was going to say, is this the time? If they win today, do we finally call them solidly a top-tier team in the NALCS?
I think you have to if you beat the team that was formerly number 2.
Fair enough. One more thing to take care of before we get into games. Win conditions, TSM Optic, rather. Ah! Was that at us?
No, he can't hear you, Dash. He's got the
Oh.
headset on.
Well, yesterday,
Yeah.
Cloud9 was
Yeah,
paying
they saw the
attention to
screen.
our win conditions. I think these guys might want to do the same.
Anyways, my win condition, if I may, James, is I want to see...
You may.
Yes, thank you. I would like to see TSM smash top lane. Dokla had a good showing in his first game yesterday, but he still fell 40 CS behind. TSM is not known for smashing top lane, but I'd love for this to be the game where they make a concerted effort up there, take advantage of the guy playing only a second game, and number 2, these games generally go late, don't get outscaled.
All right,
Yeah.
Kat.
We actually double-blind these win conditions and came up to the same conclusion. So mine for Optic was don't get smashed top lane.
Stop copying me! You
And
did
then
this
also
yesterday.
don't get outscaled. The last time they played it went super late game, and I think Power People has stepped up since then. He needs to carry in the late game.
We got to keep you two separate.
We
more
were
often.
separate.
I love it. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. That's going to do for the countdown. Time to throw it to the casters to get us into the day's games.